Hello everybody. Well, it's been a while, but I want to get back into the YouTube kick. And, excuse me, I was really excited to make a video about this. I've been thinking about this. This is going to be a video in English, and it concerns American English and Spanish. And what it concerns is vowel sounds. You might have watched my video on American English vowels. I guess I'm gonna get pretty technical in this video, but I'll try to give examples for everything, so that you might understand. Even if maybe you don't come from a technical background or haven't studied linguistics or anything. Of course, I'm gonna be using IPA. But I'll be giving you examples so that you get a good idea. Sorry about that. Wind is blowing. I couldn't resist having some music to this video. I hope the music's not too loud. I hope it doesn't impede. I hope it doesn't impede your enjoyment of the material that I prepared for this video. So, vowel sounds, specifically vowel mapping. Now what happens? Basically, if you break it down, there are only 5 distinctive vowel sounds in Spanish, what linguists call phonemic units or phonemes. Basically, a sound can vary, but if it gets outside a certain boundary, then it becomes another sound, because our mind interprets sounds and assigns them a meaning, and then when they come together they form a meaningful unit that will form a word or a syllable that's recognizable as something that means something in your language. So there are 5 phonemic vowels in Spanish. Now in American English, if we only count single sounds, monophthongs, not diphthongs, there's something like 12 different vowel phonemes. So what happens when a Spanish speaker does not train, hears these sounds, what their brain does. Excuse me, I'm gonna turn the music down just a tiny little bit because I really don't know how loud it is, and I don't want it to be too loud for this video. So as I was saying, the listener's brain will take that vowel sound and map it. This is what linguists call mapping, to a vowel that they already know, that they already recognize as a phonemic unit. So, understandably so, from a system with 12 significant units to a system with 5, there's going to be significant overlap. The answer to the question, why do Spanish speakers find pronouncing English vowel sounds distinctly and correctly so difficult, is not only the fact that they don't have the physical habit in their speech organs that would allow them to produce these sounds with little effort, but also, and I personally believe, mainly because they don't hear the difference because of this mapping. So to illustrate, and I'm gonna do both. I'm going to do mapping, American English to Spanish, and Spanish to American English. What happens when a Spanish speaker hears American English and maps it to Spanish? We're talking about vowel sounds here. And what happens vice versa? What happens when a speaker of American English hears Spanish? And what vowel phonemes does he map the Spanish sounds to? So, to begin, I'm going to show you a vowel chart here. Now let's go through vowel chart. Some of you might know this already, some of you might not. If you take this thing right here, this is an abstract representation of the human mouth. There are basically three main factors in forming a vowel sound. The first one is front to back. Does the tongue approach the front of the mouth or the back of the mouth? Does it get closer to the palate, to the front of the to the hard palate, or to the back of the mouth, the velum and the throat? Basically, are you raising the back of your tongue, the middle of your tongue, or the front of your tongue? So that's what front to back means. And on a vowel chart, this side of the vowel represents the back, and this one represents the front. Now, another factor is open versus closed. How relaxed is your jaw? How much are you opening your mouth to produce the sound? On any vowel chart, the top represents closed and the bottom represents open. And the third factor is rounding versus non-rounding. And this has to do with how rounded your lips are. So front to back has to do with your tongue. Closed to open has to do with your jaw. And rounded, unrounded has to do with your lips. For example, in American English, the ooh sound is rounded. Ooh, your lips are rounded. But, for example, the sound, is unrounded. There's no rounding going on here. Ooh, So, take a look at the vowel chart. I'm going to give you an example. This is E like in seat, E like in sit, A like in pet, A like in cat, A like in father, like in duck, A like in law, like in put, like in pool. This is the schwa, like in the man, the sound of the there. It's an the sound only occurs in unstressed vowels, so the man. And this is the vowel that appears in the word nurse. It only appears before the R sound, nurse. So if you count them, that's 11. The other one would be the so-called R-collared schwa. This is called the schwa. This sound. When it follows, when it precedes an R, the R and the schwa kind of mesh together. That's why they call it an R-collared vowel. So, if I had to represent this, I would represent it. I'm going to draw it well outside the vowel chart. I would represent it like this. So, for example, the word there, right? There. Okay. Now, if we look at the vowel chart for Spanish, you're going to see a lot less symbols, basically. So let me show you. Oh, by the way, let me go back to this chart. I have to show you which ones are rounded. So, I've underlined the rounded sounds. Ooh, like in pool. Like in put. It's not so rounded, but it's still considered rounded. And all, like in law or lawyer. Right? Some speakers of American English, for example, California, a lot of people who live in California don't have this sound. They kind of merge it with this, with far. So they don't really say lawyer, they say something more like lawyer. And I'm sure that if you ever heard this, you have an idea of how it works. So basically we have 3 rounded vowels all backed, right? No front rounded vowels. Now in Spanish we have these 5 sounds. We have I, E, A, O, U. So, as you can see, if you were looking at my lips while I was pronouncing those last two U, O are rounded. So you have 2 rounded back vowels that are mid-close to close, 2 unrounded front vowels that are mid-close to close, and 1 open, unrounded central vowel, A. So, let's compare. If you look at the qualities of these sounds, let's take a look at Spanish first. Spanish U is similar to English U. It sounds a little different to me. I think I'm not sure exactly what it is. I'm working on it. I think the English U is perhaps slightly less rounded and also perhaps slightly less backed, but still quite similar. Now, O is definitely higher than O, definitely higher, and also, and by higher of course I mean more closed. We can call another word for closed is high, and another word for open is low. Drawing on the spatial metaphor of this chart. So then you have this A, which is a central and open. If you take a look at English, you have A, which is backed and open, and A, which is more fronted and open. In Spanish you have A, which is central and open. And then you have E, which is very similar to English E. I think the difference is that English E sounds more tense because it's slightly more fronted. The tongue is even closer to the palate, producing this tense sound E. And in Spanish you have E. Very similar, but not exactly the same. And then I. This sound that is more close or higher than E, like in pet. As you can see also, because each of these is a phonemic unit, and a phonemic unit is in a way not only what it is, but also is what other units are not. There's a lot more room for variation here in a system with less vowels than in a system with more vowels, because take a look at this. If you move in any direction, you have a lot less leeway before a sound turns into another sound in the mind of the listener, and here you have a lot more room to play with. Okay, so what happens? There's mapping going on, which reminds me of that Casablanca quote. Oh my God, there's gambling going on here? Yes, there is mapping going on here. So, if you followed this so far, let me show you what goes on. Let's start with English to Spanish, and any English speaker that has ever had to deal with a Spanish speaker who learned English as a second language and who had a thick accent will know what I mean. Even people who are very fluent sometimes do this because pronunciation is one of the biggest pitfalls for learners of language. It's difficult. You have to train your brain and your perception and also your muscles to recognize first and produce second these different vowel sounds that your brain is not, that in the beginning stages your brain is not even equipped to recognize. So, American English to Spanish. Spanish speakers will map the duck vowel, the cat vowel, and the father vowel to a, resulting in duck, cat, father. Right? They will also map e and I, the seat and sit vowels, to e, resulting in phrases like please have a seat, and also please sit down. They will also map the pet vowel and also the schwa very often to I, resulting in phrases like the pet is sick. They will also map English oo and the pool and put vowels to Spanish u, resulting in things like resulting in phrases, hypothetical, I know we're getting silly here, but to give you an example, resulting in phrases like put it on the table, and so on and so forth. And they are also likely to map a to o, because they are both rounded and so on and so forth. And also because they might perceive a as being too rounded to be a, even though it's lower than o, and so on. So resulting in things like it's not true, right? For it's not true. What remains to be seen is, and I'm sure that now that I'm listening for it, I will probably hear my students do it pretty soon, is where to map the nurse vowel. This vowel that could also be transcribed as this because it always precedes an R, so it's always R colored. This thing right here is basically like an R joined to the vowel representing an R colored vowel. Hold on a second, I want to see how long I am. I've probably been talking for over 20 minutes already, but hey, there's a lot to say here. Hold on a second. Well, I'm still not at the 20-minute mark. That's good. I don't want to make this video too long, because I don't want to bore you guys, even though I honestly find this kind of stuff fascinating as an English teacher and as a linguist. So, we've taken a look at all this mapping, and this is only mapping of single vowel sounds or monophthongs, not diphthongs. Diphthongs also get mapped. Luckily for Spanish and English speakers alike, Spanish is a language very rich in diphthongs, resulting in mappings that when a Spanish speaker is speaking, trying to imitate English and using the diphthongs that they map the English diphthongs to, they produce diphthongs that are pretty similar in the eyes of an English speaker to the English diphthongs, and that results in easier communication, because mapping goes both ways. A speaker of Spanish will hear English, map the sounds to his language, then attempt to reproduce them. Now the problem occurs when the speaker of English maps the sounds that the Spanish speaker is making to sounds that are different to the ones that the Spanish speaker is mapping them to. that's when communication falls apart, and then it requires a very conscious effort on the part of the listener to try to figure out what the other person is saying. So for example, the mapping of E, English E, I'm exaggerating the sounds a little to be very clear and obvious, but mapping of English E to Spanish E is not likely to be a big problem for the English speaker listening to the Spanish speaker trying to reproduce the sound. Why? Because for an English speaker, the sounds are perceived to be very similar, which is not surprising because objectively speaking, they are. But of course, not everything's objective. The problem occurs when mapping is asymmetric, if you will. And, for example, a Spanish speaker pronounces sit like seat. Why? Because then the English speaker decodes that E as E and hears seat, S-E-A-T, instead of sit, S-I-T, S-I-T, excuse me. So that's a communication problem. So, you know, it helps the learner to be aware of this. This is why this kind of very academic and technical stuff can actually improve your game if you are looking forward to learning lots of different languages. Being aware of mapping can actually help you communicate, because even if you cannot reach exactly the sound the way the native speaker is pronouncing it, maybe you can come close to something that he will map to that sound, and then communication is easy. So, that aside, let me go into how speakers of American English, in my experience, map the five vowel sounds of Spanish to their own English system. And then I'll end this video because, yes, I know, I'm going on for long. So, usually, English speakers map A to A. They map the central vowel, A, to this back vowel, A, resulting in things like la casa for la casa. They also seem to map E to E or to A, depending on where the E falls. For example, if the E is at the end of a word, they tend to map it to A. They map E to E, which is not really a problem because they are very similar, and as you remember, Spanish speakers do map E to E. So it's not a communication problem in that case. Speakers of American English tend to map O to O, or to O, depending on where it is. Resulting in English speakers, for example, pronouncing the word for no, which is no, as no. And also Spanish U to English U, which are quite similar, and this is not really a communication problem because a Spanish speaker will map English U to Spanish U. So, not a big deal. Either way, it's interesting to note, and if you're looking to learn Spanish and are an English speaker, it might be wise to take a look at this. So, I know that this video was not very well structured. I just wanted to put my thoughts out there. This is a work in progress, and I hope that this will help learners, and particularly it might help teachers. Doing this kind of work has helped me to get to a starting point from where I can start to take my students in the right direction towards noticing and pronouncing these different sounds of English. So for example, if you know that a Spanish speaker will map E and I to Spanish E, you can, for example, begin from your knowledge of mapping, knowing that an English speaker will map Spanish E to English E, and tell the speaker of Spanish to start from E to produce this sound, and then, for example, tell him to try to find a middle ground between E and I to get to the sound of sit. It's not easy, but the learner needs to have an anchor, a sound from where to start, and then try to move it in another direction. Playing it by ear doesn't work for every student, and I've found this useful, not just with teaching Spanish speakers how to recognize and pronounce different vowel sounds found in English, but also with helping English speakers get around to approximating their sounds to Spanish vowels. Vowels are difficult, and they take a lot of work, and it takes an informed teacher to kind of tell the student how and where to begin in the journey towards actually hearing these differences. That's the first step, and then producing them. So I hope that was informative. I know it's a rambling video, but I honestly hope that this can be useful for other teachers. It's a work in progress. I appreciate comments, and I'll get back to you on this, because there's still a lot of work to be done on my part. Alright, maybe later I'll make a diphthong mapping video. That would be interesting, I think. Okay, let me know what you guys think. And that's it for vowel mapping, American English to Spanish, and Spanish to American English. I'll catch you guys later. I hope you found this video interesting.